Cars are one of the best interests to have. Whether you're into racing them, modifying them, or making sweet, sweet love to them, they can improve your life massively. They give you something to get excited about and to bond with people over. But there's a lot of basic knowledge that's needed when talking about them. That's why it can feel overwhelming when you talk to someone who's actually knowledgeable. And of course, you don't want them to know you're an idiot. So you just nod your head and pretend you know what an 8-liter quad-turbo W16 with DCT means, while you get so annoyed that you start to think about plunging a knife right into their jugular and watching them gradually slump into a puddle of their own blood. Well, lucky for them, I'm gonna teach you what those terms mean, so you can follow along in the conversation like a normal person instead of just thinking about murdering them. And really, there's not much to it. So this video will cover everything you need to know to have a real car conversation. Once you understand things like the engine types, transmissions, and drivetrains, you can start to form your opinions about cars, which makes you interesting to talk to. And even if you already know the basics about cars, I'll be throwing in some facts that even seasoned car nerds don't know. So you can really trick people into thinking you're an expert. And we should really start by talking about the basic layout. All cars have an engine, a transmission, and a drivetrain, which is everything that you need to make the car go. Unless, of course, you're driving a Ford, in which case you'll be pushing most of the time, so that'll just add weight. But in general, these components are blended together in a multitude of ways to create anything from a Honda Civic to an F-150 to a Bugatti. Now let's take a look at the engine, and the first thing you need to know is that how it works isn't actually that important. You can just think of it like a fleshlight, because you should think about what it does for you and not what's going on inside while you're using it. All you need to know is that there are cylinders with a piston that pumps up and down. Air and fuel goes in, combustion occurs, and that creates a force which is used to move the car. If you want to take that red pill and actually see how an engine works, you can just look it up. There's a ton of videos and it's really not that complicated. The real thing that you should know is the basic notation. So when you see something like this, you should be able to tell what kind of engine it has, and it's actually pretty easy. So the first thing to look at is actually the last number here, which tells you how many cylinders the engine has. This is the most important information since it tells you a lot about the character of the car. For example, something small, cheap, and light like a Honda Civic will almost always have 4 cylinders, while something faster and sportier like a Corvette or a Mustang will have 8, and a Bugatti can have up to 16 cylinders. And now that we know how many cylinders the engine has, we can look at the letter next to it, which tells us the layout of those cylinders. In this example, the V tells you that the engine actually looks like a V shape. The cylinders are divided into 2 separate banks, which face each other at roughly a 90-degree angle. Probably the most common engine layout is the I shape, which also means inline or straight. Basically, every single 4-cylinder is an inline or straight 4. And BMW chooses to use inline 6s over the more common V6. The next important engine layout to see is denoted by an H or an F. Subaru and Porsche use this engine layout for most of their cars because it allows you to keep the weight lower to get better handling. In this engine layout, 2 banks of cylinders sit flat, opposing each other on the same plane. In that way, the letter H actually represents how the engine looks, which cannot be said for the W engine layout. This is commonly used by like Bentley or Bugatti to fit a lot of cylinders in a small engine block. And this is how it looks. So not exactly like the letter W, but it sort of makes sense because maybe it's like having 2 V's within each other. And similar to the W layout, there's something called a VR layout, which you'll find in some Volkswagens. This allows you to get a 6-cylinder in the space of about an inline 4 or inline 5. And now that you've figured out the layout of the engine, you can look at the first number here, which is the displacement. So in this case, 3.0 L means 3 liters. This just tells you what the total volume is in all of the cylinders combined. So if you have a 3-liter V6, that means 3 liters is divided by 6 cylinders, so each cylinder is 0.5 liters, or 500 milliliters, or 500 cc's. And to put that in context, the new Honda Civic has a 4-cylinder with 1.5 liters, while the new Bugatti has a 16-cylinder with 8 liters. And that is basically all you need to know to talk about engines, except for one thing, which is the induction type.